Hey, welcome to the Stephanie Stevens Show, where I help you discover the power of communication and the keys that unlock the doors to freedom in every area of your life. Well, hello, my friend, and thank you so much for spending a few minutes with me today. I'm Stephanie Stevens. You're listening to the Stephanie Stevens podcast. It's actually called the Stephanie Stevens Show. I feel like we're becoming friends as you continue to listen and we share time together. That's really how friendships are made. So thank you very much for listening to the Stephanie Stevens podcast. And this podcast is about learning how to master communication in any and every area of your life. And your specific genre may be written communication. Maybe it's sign language. Maybe it's art. Maybe it's nonverbal communication or dance or something incredible and artistic. Maybe it is verbal communication and you need expansive ways to continue to grow. Perfect. You're in the right spot. Thank you very much for listening. And if you would rate the podcast, I'd so appreciate it. If you could share the podcast with others you think might benefit, that would be amazing too. Okay, one last thing, last but not least. If you would rate it, that would really help others like you find it easier. I really don't understand how or why, I'm just being honest. But I guess ratings do help others who are interested in the same genre find the podcast. Okay, so business out of the way. Let's get into the title of the podcast. Why am I titling a podcast Hide It? And what is it? Well, it is whatever you need it to be in the moment. Here's where this idea came from. I was having a kind of a housewarming / birthday party for multiple family members. I just moved into a new home on a new property, and many of my family members had not seen the space yet, and they wanted to. So I thought, perfect, I'm going to go ahead and host a family birthday party for 4 people. I mean, 4 people had birthdays, but many, many more people were coming, okay? So great idea. I had plenty of time to plan, but as life continues to unfold, you know exactly what happens. Doesn't matter how much time you plan or prepare for, stuff gets in the way. So I really wanted to have like every picture hung and every piece of furniture in place. And if that chair wasn't going to arrive on time, I was really going to have a problem with it. And, the shelves had to look just right and just all of it. All of it. There's a bit of perfectionism in there. Of course there is. But really, I want to create a warm, wonderful, welcoming space for those I love. It's just sort of part of who I am. So if you can identify with that at all, then you understand what it's like when people are coming over and you just want things the way you want them. You want everything to smell nice and feel good and look good and be comfortable and warm and accommodating. Okay, so here's where the hide it comes in. As time was ticking away and I was trying to prepare the food and trying to clean up the various rooms. And here's what I started to notice. My reticular vision had started to not see things in rooms, like boxes. Like after boxes sit in a pile on the floor for a certain number of weeks, they start to blend into the floor and your brain stops registering them as actually being there. They like become part of the landscape. Okay, they become part of the environment. And I kind of put myself in a different headspace in order to see as a guest. Like if I were walking into this room for the first time, what might my eye grab? And I was mortified. Well, how about that big old pile in the corner? What on earth is that? What is it doing here? Why is it still unpacked? And where can it go? Because it can't go there. So I proceeded to run around my home and also around my children. I still have 2 children living with me, and they watched me shove boxes into closets. And that's not where the boxes went. They didn't go into the closets. They watched me shove things into laundry room cupboards. That didn't go in laundry room cupboards. Let's face it. My files for my office definitely don't go in the laundry room in a cupboard. But here's what I was doing. I was hiding stuff. Now, you may say to yourself, well, you're supposed to be, more mature than that. And you're supposed to be more professional. And, well, what's wrong with you? You didn't manage your time wisely. That all could be true. However, the time is managed as things come up and as things become priorities to me. So there were a handful of things around the house that had not been a priority because other things in the course of any given day would usurp the importance of me taking care of that particular laundry basket or that particular set of boxes. Okay, that's just the way it was. Now, when it came time to opening my home, because I wanted it to be warm, welcoming, and wonderful, and I didn't want extra stuff, as in clutter, distracting anybody, it was time to do something about it. So I just hit it, okay? Just hit it. Now, I'm going to tell you something that a lot of coaches, therapists, whatever, would tell you. I'm going to tell you to hide stuff once in a while. Go ahead and do it. Hide it. Do it. Number one, there's no harm. And I'm going to tell you why. Number two, you're going to have to do this on many levels from time to time. Here's an example. When I was on the radio, I would always be talking to large audiences. And in one case, I was on a network and there were over 1 million people that listened countrywide, okay, from coast to coast. Now, I was also going through a very difficult and painful divorce at the time. So my job on the air was not to spill my beans, air my laundry, and vent my emotions to the audience every time the microphone opened. My job was very specific. Now, could I identify with other people who were hurting, who called in and said, hey, I'm dealing with this, or, a specific song is played and it just resonates with you because of the nature of the song or the theme, and you can tap into that and use it as a springboard for something, wise to say? Yeah, absolutely. But to go ahead and just display it all would have been a huge mistake. It would have hurt me professionally, and it would never have benefited the audience. When there have been times that pieces here and there, parts of my story would benefit the audience, I would share them. However, it depended on the day, it depended on the reason I was doing that particular broadcast, and it depended on the context of the bigger picture for the day. So you may have to walk into a meeting and you may have to put the hat on of the role you're playing in the meeting. Maybe it's facilitator, maybe it's chair, maybe it's business owner, maybe it's employee, maybe it's partner, it doesn't matter. When you walk into that meeting, you have to put that hat on and you gotta hide the other stuff, at least temporarily. Okay, you're gonna find that you need to do this many times, in many ways, on many levels, right? If you're a parent, you may have to do this in your role as a parent. You may be dealing with some other stuff in your other arenas of life, and your child comes to you and they really need to talk to you about something. Now, is that the time for you to vent on them everything that's going on in your life? Absolutely not. This is the time to practice the 90-10 rule. I keep my mouth shut 90% of the time and listen, and I provide feedback 10% of the time. Okay? When you are finished in that role, you take that hat off, you step back out, and you make an appointment with yourself to go back to the stuff you hid, because hiding is only temporary. When you hide something like that, and I'm just using the word hide, it's just because it works. So you go back to that thing you hid. You go back to the closet. You pull the file back out. You start to unpack the file. Paper by paper, notebook by notebook, manila folder by manila folder. You unpack that stuff. You go through it all, okay? And I'm saying hypothetically, metaphorically, and literally. All right? You take this piece of paper. What is this good for? Do I need this in the future? Nope. Bye-bye. Goes in the vertical file, aka the garbage can. What's this? Ooh, you know what? I'm going to need this next week because this is a great agenda idea for next week's meeting. Putting that over here in the next week's pile. But you will eventually go back to the stuff that you hide, and you will unpack it, and you will process it, and you will do whatever you need to do. In some cases, it's grieving. When I was on the air and I was going through that divorce, I was in emotional pain. Actual pain. Sometimes you're in such emotional pain that you feel it physically. And there were times I could feel it in parts of my body, my solar plexus. What did that mean? That meant my heart hurt. I was experiencing heartache. Okay? When you have something in the pit of your stomach and there's a deep emotional issue and something is twisting you up on the inside, sometimes it's this your need to process something that feels like a gut punch. Maybe it's a betrayal. Maybe it's you've been disrespected in a certain way and it feels like a punch to the gut. Your body always tells the story. It always will. You can't hide from your body. It will feel these things even if you're not willing to deal with them. So, again, there would be times I would step onto the air. I would have to just, boom, put on that radio personality, put on that hat for that moment, that break, or that hour, and do my job. I could not sit there and wallow in the middle of my sorrow, my pain, my grief. I couldn't do it. It wouldn't fare well for the future of what I was building, and it wouldn't fare well for anybody I loved. I wouldn't have kept a job if I would have done that. It wouldn't have served my clients. It definitely wouldn't have served the audience to just vent whenever I felt like I needed to. So here's my point. You will need to find a pertinent way to hide things from time to time. Just like I hid the boxes from my family when they were coming over. The lesson is you're always making an appointment with yourself to go back. So my appointment is tomorrow. I will now need to go back to those boxes and those baskets, laundry baskets, whatever it was that I shoved away, and pull those out and go through every article of clothing, go through every item in the box and decide, is this a giveaway? Is this a store? Or is this a throwaway? And it's going to go in one of those 3 bins, and then I'm going to feel good. This is metaphorical, and it's also literal. So as you go back and process the thing that you're going to need to hide when you walk into your meeting or walk into that conversation or walk into that job or walk into that store or walk into that relationship, whatever it is, when you have to put something on the back burner or hide it temporarily to do the job at hand, always make a commitment with yourself, even if it means setting a time. There were actually times where I set a time. Okay, I got to be on the air in 4 minutes. I am now putting in my day planner in my little app on my phone calendar under tasks. I am setting a meeting for myself for 3:45 p.m. and me and myself are going to go ahead and go back. I'm going to revisit this issue. I'm going to unpack it and I'm going to deal with it then. If you can do that, what your mind will do is it will allow you to focus on the task at hand because you've made a commitment to deal with the issue. It'll let you focus. In fact, it'll bring a broader range of perspective and focus and awareness in the moment, because the clutter and the background won't be like the program running in the background that's still up, spinning. You'll have closed that out and made a commitment to go open that program again later and run through it. But it is so important that you step into your spaces, your responsibilities, your roles, and your duties to the highest potential, the best of your ability, each and every time you can. And always making a commitment to go back, deal with the stuff you had to hide, pull it back out of the box, and process it well. If it's grief, grieve well. You will not grieve something in total in 5 minutes. You may need to make multiple appointments with yourself. You may need to cry. You may need to scream. You may need to yell. You may need to swear once in a while. You may need to write. You may need to process with a good friend that you can trust. But make an appointment and do your diligence to process that through, and then step back in a more expanded person, because that's really how it works. So the moral of the story, it's okay to hide stuff, but you always go back, you find it, you unpack it, you deal with it, and you resolve it to the best of your abilities so that you can continue to grow and expand. And isn't that what life is about? Thank you so much again for listening to the Stephanie Stevens Show. I'm so honored to have spent time with you today. Please rate the podcast, please subscribe, and I can't wait to connect with you on the next episode. Thanks so much for listening to The Stephanie Stevens Show. Please remember to subscribe so we can stay connected and you never miss an episode of the podcast. Oh, and if you haven't left a rating yet, please be sure to do so. It helps incredible people like you find the podcast. We'll see you on the next episode.